Aloha and welcome to Where Do We Go, a podcast where we, as high schoolers, sit down with female professionals in different fields to simply talk story and share with us their experiences, advice, and overall helping us foster female leaders for the future. I'm your host, Kylee Hamamoto, and I'm so glad that you decided to join us today. To learn more about our podcast and previous episodes and speakers, visit our website at www.wegohawaii.org/listen. Our podcast is brought to you by WeGo, a nonprofit organization founded by Kylee Hamamoto with the mission to foster strong and independent female leaders. To learn more about WeGo and ways to support, visit www.wegohawaii.org for more details. Today's episode is a special installment of a college spotlight series of Where Do We Go? Due to many requests by you all who are currently in the college application process, we at WeGo want to help you alleviate stress, get advice, and make the process more manageable by hearing from girls accepted into their dream colleges and how you can too. Hello everyone, my name is Kylee Hamamoto, founder of WeGo and your host for our Where Do We Go podcast. And today I'm joined by Zoey Duan, an incoming freshman at Yale University, the second episode of our College Spotlight series where we interview college students to help girls sort of navigate through the college admissions process and share some of their advice with us. So yeah, thank you so much, Zoey, for making time for us, and I will pass it to you to sort of introduce yourself to our listeners.
I'm Zoey. I graduated Punahou School as a part of the best class ever, class of 2022. And I am an incoming first year at Yale University, so that's very exciting. Some things about me, there's not much. I think when it comes to like my high school experience, a lot of it for me was very extracurricular based. So I will definitely be talking about that a lot more today.
Yeah, so first, I guess if you want to talk about yourself more and get into some of the activities that you were involved in that you were talking about earlier in high school, and sort of just any background to help the audience sort of get a better sense of yourself as an applicant before we move on to like our next questions.
Yeah. So in high school, I did a lot of different activities. Most of them, I feel like I had a pretty good balance of activities that were school sponsored and activities that I initiated myself. For example, at school, I did debate, I did student council, I did some cultural clubs like Japanese Okinawan Club, all of which I did hold leadership positions in. And then outside of school, I did a lot of advocacy because that was what I was really into. For instance, I was a part of I'm one of the leaders for the Hawaii Public Health Institute State Youth Council. And so we did a lot of advocacy surrounding the issues that council was concerned with. And outside that council, I still did a few other advocacy initiatives, including working with like the Hawaii Children and Youth Summit and their council, working with Youth for Oahu, which was this, it was like a initiative that was youth-led that aimed to advocate for one of the youth commissions that was established in Hawaii. There's the State Youth Commission and the Honolulu City Youth Commission, and so I actually helped to establish the Honolulu City Youth Commission because that was absent before we had Youth for Oahu. And then I did a few other initiatives that I personally founded. One of the major ones was Hawaii Vax Help, which is the youth-led statewide COVID-19 vaccination assistance hotline. And so that was actually with one of my friends and co-founders, Eli Ochiai, and we both kind of did that. And I think that initiative was a very prominent one that helped us kind of maybe stand out from a lot of other applicants and it's kind of like the same gist with like WeGo and a lot of the other organizations that some of our fellow high school peers have founded, but it really showed like initiative and personal passion because you can like demonstrate why you founded those things and what you did to help really establish it and build it into the project that it is. And so that was a few of the things that I did. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think just from that, people are able to understand why you got into Yale. So obviously so impressive, but I expected nothing like less from you, so that's awesome.
Okay,
I
Miss
guess
Kylie.
um I guess if you just want to walk us through now like the whole admissions process of getting into Yale and just
Mhm.
like things high schoolers should consider and like be doing now maybe as a sophomore, junior, to get into like Yale and other like top elite colleges, including like, the Ivies and things like that.
Mhm. So I feel like throughout okay, we can start chronologically. So I feel like when I really started to start building my application, I guess, was like the end of my junior year, which if you're not like if it's the end of your junior year and like, which is for many, you don't have to freak out about like not starting where I started. I feel like the process is very different for every person. And I will get there or I will get to an interesting part in my timeline, but I started kind of creating my narrative at the end of my junior year. And what that means is I feel like, well, from what I've read a bunch of like college prep books for like uh, doing the college application, but also just like from previous experience from other relatives or friends that got into Ivies. Um, a lot of the colleges like to see you in this narrative for like your life that demonstrates who you are as a person and like kind of your character. And so one of the things that I kind of took in, it was a part of a program that I did that some of you guys might be interested in your senior year. It's called Distinguished Young Women. That's a program that you can do. But that program, one of the things that it said to do for us was in interviews, you have to find 5 distinct characteristics of yourself that you want to leave with your interviewer. And I kind of took that tip and incorporated it into my application process. And so at the end of junior year, what I did was I sat down and I looked at all my curriculars, my extracurriculars, my academics, my everything that was considered for the college application process, and I wanted to see what were the 5 main things that could stick with the admission officers. Yeah. So I wanted to see what would be my like 5 that stuck. And I feel like at the end, I didn't even have 5. I think I had 3, which was fine. But the point is to just make you as an applicant stick out and have those 3 main things, what you want to convey, be shown. And I call that like the narrative because like it's the 3 main things of who you are as a person. And so that's what I did. I started with that. And then at the beginning of my junior year, I started drafting my personal statement. And that was definitely not it was definitely not done like at the beginning of junior year the junior year's summer. It was definitely done like I don't know 2 weeks before the application deadlines were due. And so but then it's really good for you to start considering what you want to write for your essays, what you want to convey, yeah, to the admission officers as an applicant very early on, maybe like juniors summer of after the junior year. And then once school starts, I also had a lot of different extracurriculars that I was juggling. So it was very difficult for me to actually write my college application. And so, except with the exception of my Yale essays, which I had to turn in early around like November 15th, if I remember correctly, that was my early action application. Yeah. So Yale was like my top choice kind of since the start. And then um, afterwards, there's the second deadline, which was like January something for the other colleges, all the other colleges that I applied to. And for context, I was supposed to apply to 16. I actually applied to 15 because I actually did not apply to Princeton because I didn't think that it was fit for me. And also, I ran out of time. Because here's the interesting part, I basically wrote all 4, other than I think the UCs. The UCs don't count. the UCs was an earlier deadline too. I think I wrote like 10 essays or 10 applications within like the 2 weeks of winter break, which is really, really bad. Do not do that. But the reason that I did that was because my early action decision for Yale, it was actually deferred. And that was something that really impacted me throughout the process. And I feel like this is really important for kids who are going through it, is there's a lot of things that you cannot control throughout the college admission process. And a lot of the decisions that you're getting back is not reflective of who you are as a student or as an applicant or as a person. Because even though this is like not confirmed, but I genuinely believe that a lot of the deferrals that happened during the before our deferral period, so that time when they released the deferrals, a lot of those I genuinely believe was not because like of the integrity of our applications, but rather how the internal process was happening for Yale admissions. Because usually a lot of the Ivies, they'll have interviews, right? So they will ask the applicants to have interviews. And for my interview, I think it was conducted like 5 days before they were supposed to announce the deferral decisions. And usually you have to like at least have a week beforehand, because they have to like write up the comments and then email it to the head admissions, and then the admissions has to like look through it and then consider it along with your application. And so I was deferred, and I was interviewed 5 days before they were supposed to announce it. And then I had a friend that was interviewed 3 days before they were supposed to announce it, and he also got deferred. And so I don't know, the timeline doesn't match up there. And so I feel like even though it's not confirmed that, oh, this is why they deferred us, you know, I feel like it's something that is reflective of how the application process works. And I just wanted to like make sure that people like me and like my friend who was really discouraged after being deferred, to not tell them not to get deferred, because it's not something that is going to impact you in the long run. And it's not something that you should be really like just really obsessed with. Because after my deferral, I was like so sad, I was so depressed, I was like, no, I'm not gonna go anywhere. And so then I was like, during winter break, I had no motivation to start any of my other essays, and I was like, oh, I don't even want to do anything. And I had procrastinated so much that I had to do like 10 essays in the 2 weeks, which really wasn't great. But it's okay. It's whatever. It's something that has already passed. But yeah, so that was like my timeline. And then afterwards, what was really helpful for me throughout, because that was a deferred decision, was writing letters of continued interest, and as well as updates to various colleges that were later on in the deadline process. And so I think I wrote a lot of updates. And some of the colleges on their website, if you go look, and your college counselors will tell you to do this too, but they'll tell you like, oh, look at the college to see if they want the letters of continued interest, because some of them don't want it. And Yale was one of the colleges that did not want, or they said that they would like the letters of continued interest and other updates if it's only absolutely necessary. And like by the tone of the diction that they used on the website, it's like, don't send us anything, right? Unless it's like absolutely necessary. But I sent them 3, okay? And because I was so anxious, and also because there was just like a lot of new things that were coming up at the time, because you're applying at the same time that your college application process is happening. You're applying to scholarships, you're applying to programs, you have your extracurriculars that are like being built up and developed. And so there's a lot of updates that are happening, and your application at the beginning of your senior year might look very different from your application at the end, near the end of your senior year. And so for me, it was really helpful to update my progress along the way. And it also shows that you're continuously still working and dedicated to your extracurriculars, even during this process, right? And so that was something I wrote them like 3 updates, and like plus a letter of continued interest, which on their website would have been like, why are you sending this. This is absolutely necessary. But I will say, like, it is important to make sure that it's not like you don't have 3 long letters of continued interest. I think my 3rd letter was just like 1 paragraph or something like that. And it's just to demonstrate that, oh, like, this is happening, you should know. And so that was something that helped along the way. And so, yeah, I guess my 3 things are just start early. Don't worry if you're deferred or like if you get a decision early on in the process that you're not satisfied with. Like, I know a few friends got waitlisted or rejected from safety schools and they were freaking out, but then afterwards they got into like good colleges. So don't let any of that be reflective of who you are, and just be patient. I know it's hard, but you have to be really patient, because I remember me too. I got waitlisted by one of my safety schools and I was really confused, and I thought that was like the end of the world because I had my deferral and that waitlist, and I was like, oh my gosh, but it was fine. So like, it's really important to just be patient and just like to look at the big picture. And then the 3rd thing is to be dedicated and continue to show your interest, even if like something bad happens, or if you like win any of the scholarship programs that there are. It's really good to update them, because it really shows that you are credible, kind of not credible, but you are accomplished. And because it's evaluated by other credible scholarship programs, then it's like, oh yeah, they must be good, right? And so that kind of moves on to your second question, which was what kind of things should students be starting to do? And the first one I was talking about was just build your narrative. And then the second one right now is really look at what you've been doing over your summers, because schools really care about that. I don't know why, but they do. And so like, you want to make sure that when you're thinking about your applications, a lot of schools will say, oh, what was one memorable summer that you did like something good? Make sure to like think about all the 4 summers that you've had, 3 summers that you've had over the high school year, and think about like what are some important things. And another thing that might interest some students that really will help you stand out is doing research. And I did research in the summer before my senior year, so like my junior year, summer after junior year. And that was something that I think really helped me too, because it's doing research is something that is more rare in Hawaii specifically. I think it's a lot more common here outside, but because the college admission officers are looking at like a specific, or just Hawaii as like a general area, right? And like they might have like a quota for how many students they might pull just from like the Hawaii area. If you have research and a lot of other people don't do it, then you have the upper hand in that case, right? And make sure that your research is something that, again, fits into your narrative. So for me, I did research, and my research specifically was on disaster psychology, which really helped because my major going into it right now is psychology. And so it really helped to kind of frame my narrative. And again, it was really beneficial because if you do research really well, you can be accredited with either college credits or other awards like research awards that you can win. And then you can put that on to your college application and they'll be like, oh my God, it's like cool. Yeah. And so research is a big one. If you're like wondering how to get started with research, that's a whole nother spiel that'll take a while to explain. But you can just start by like researching, that's ironic, but you can start by researching research programs by like Googling them, and just like, there's a bunch that are virtual, there's a bunch that are in person. The one that I did was virtual, and there was like a rigorous application process that was kind of annoying, but you just have to like make sure that the research program that you're doing, or if you're doing like your own individual research program, you have to make sure that you have credible mentors, right? So because you want to say, oh, I conducted research with Professor Blank from Stanford University or whatever, and they'll be like, oh my God. So things like that. Other things is scholarship programs. You should definitely be considering to apply. like DYW, Distinguished Young Woman. I mentioned it. That's a scholarship program. That's pretty big. Yeah. And it's really nice if you like do it with like a friend because like you're going through it the entire time. So it was really fun. Um, yeah. I mean, it was like a good experience for me, even though I didn't win the first place. But it was like really helpful. Um, and then also other scholarship programs like Coca-Cola Scholars. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. That one's a pretty big one. There's other ones like um, there are more specific ones that I applied to. Like I had HMSA Kamaina Awards, which was specific to like students demonstrating either I think it was sportsmanship or like some kind of sports and interest in public health stuff. And I'm interested in public health, and so that was one of the things that I did. And there was a few other like award programs, but applying to those programs are really helpful because then they'll see that you're being awarded for things that like you've done, and it means that you are already like reviewed to be like a good student or like a valuable applicant, awardee, recipient of the award. So they'll be like, oh yeah, if they thought they're good, they probably are good. And so that's something that's pretty big too. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think earlier you mentioned, oh, and thank you, by the way, that was really good advice.
Yeah.
That was really thorough too. Thank you
No
for taking us
problem.
through that.
My secrets are out, but it's okay.
No, so you mentioned earlier how you applied early action for Yale.
hmm
Did you only apply early action to Yale, or did you also apply to other schools early
So
action?
So each school is different with their early action, early decision, whatever's. For Yale specifically, Yale has REA, which is restrictive early action, meaning you can only apply to one school under early action. I believe you can apply for early decision, even though it's restrictive early action, but I didn't want to do that because personally, for me, early decision was like a big it was kind of scary because it means that you're binded to the school, right? So I mean it worked out for a lot of other people, but I just didn't do it also because my top choice was Yale, and Yale doesn't offer early decision. They only offer restrictive early action, which was fine for me. Um, and I feel like I should have mentioned this more, but you should really research your school and have like a list of the schools that you really want to do and narrow it down to a list that is doable for you, right? And look at how each school's application process works, and decide from there what you want to do as your top and then your second and third. So for me, Yale was my first, and they only had restrictive early action. I feel like a lot of other people, they may have had like early actions that weren't restrictive, and they did multiple. But a lot of the kids that I knew, who did get into Ivies, a lot of the Ivies, they only like restrictive early actions or early decisions. Like Harvard is early decision, and I think you can only apply to Harvard. Um, U Chicago is also ED. And I think like once you're in, you're in. Um, I don't know specifically about like Brown or Columbia or Duke. Oh, I think Duke was also early decision. You have to fact check me on that. But a lot of the ones they'll only like allow you to apply to that school early. So you should like make that ranking to figure out what school you wanted to go. And if you're not really sure about like, oh, do I really want to like if you're not sure about going to Harvard for sure, or if you're not sure about going to Yale for sure, um, try to avoid the early decision ones unless it's like I really want to go there. And then you can like get binded, I guess. Yeah.
And is that like, does that give students a leg up, you think, if they apply early
Um,
action, early decision?
I don't. I personally, I'm not entirely sure, but when you look at the stats, it while it is true that more students are admitted through the early action or early decision processes, um, the issue with that is the statistic might be misleading because the students that do apply to early action and early decision are the ones that have been prepping their entire lives to apply to that specific school. And so it's really, you can't really say when it comes to that. And when you're looking at like how the admission officers are looking at your application, it's a matter of whether or not you want your application to be like one fish among like a really small sea of good students or like a small fish in a bigger sea, but you have like a higher chance of denial because it's bigger, right? And so it kind of depends. For me, I didn't really think so when I was doing my early college application process. I didn't think of like how good it how like yeah how if there's an advantage with going with early action, if there was an advantage for different majors, because some schools do that, right? Like it's easier to go in as like a hospitality major or something like that. I didn't look at those mainly because I strongly believed that I wanted my college experience to be what I wanted to get out of it, not what like the college is going to like. I didn't want to apply under hospitality if I could get into Yale just because like I could, go to Yale. That wasn't something that was of priority to me. And so I just applied to every single school as a psychology major, with the exception of Johns Hopkins, because Johns Hopkins had like a specific program that I was interested in for public health. And so yeah, I didn't look at how much advantage it would give me if I was to apply like to the different routes. um but that's something that was like a personal decision. I know a few students, other classmates, who did decide to like try to game the system that way. And I feel like some were okay and some were not, so it's something that just like, if you really wanted to do it and if you're okay with doing it, then you can. But personally, it wasn't something that I did.
Yeah, so then speaking of majors, how do you think girls should go about like figuring out which major is best for them? Because a big part of like our doing this podcast is to help girls figure out, like get
Mm-hmm.
exposed to different fields and figuring out, their interests and their passions and fields to pursue. So then, knowing that like you knew you wanted to go into psychology,
Mm-hmm.
what is your advice for girls who don't really know what,
Yeah.
major to go into or what
Mm-hmm.
field to pursue?
So here's the thing. I still don't know if I want to go into like my major because um it's a very like you'll say it during the college process. You'll say that you want to do this, and then afterwards you'll like think more, and you're like matured, and you're like you understand things more, and you're looking at different things. So there's a good chance that you'll change your major. For Yale specifically, you don't have to declare until your sophomore year. So for me, I still technically don't have to do psychology if I didn't want to do, and I'm still exploring more areas. But I think for girls, and just like younger girls that are going through the process, I really think that doing something that you're already passionate is something very important to me. Like my career goal is to work in the health fields, whether that be as like a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or as a public health agent, which is something that I'm considering right now, or like a healthcare consultant. Anything like surrounding that field is something that I'm interested in. But that's also something that I realized comes out of a place of privilege, because for me, even though my family grew up not as well off, my family now is more well off, and so I don't have to consider careers that would like put my family at a stable income or something like that, right? Because some kids, they're like, oh yeah, I want to do psychology, or I want to do like performing arts, but that's not going to make money for my family that's not as well off. And so I feel like those factors are definitely things that you need to consider if you're in that position. But fortunately, I don't need to consider that because I am currently living more well off than I was before. But I feel like that is something that should be taken into consideration if you're in that position. Um, Other things that you can think about, or maybe not think about, is I don't know. there's a lot of things about how, oh, if I apply as a female psych major, that sounds like everybody else in the world. Or if I apply as like a female nursing major, there's so many people that are like me, right? That was, again, something that I didn't consider because I was super already passionate in this field, and I know that I wanted to continue it no matter how many other people are doing it. But I feel like that's something that you don't want to consider, even if you're not like me, mainly because if you're creating your narrative, right, you want your narrative to make sense. And if you can definitely see a passion in your extracurriculars for advocacy, for I don't know, like debate and like policy making, and then you suddenly apply as like a STEM career or like a STEM major, they'll be like, what are you, why, where's the connection? And you'd have to like build the connection really well in your application for it to like make sense for them, right? um and so you I don't think that a lot of like, I don't think the rhetoric of, oh, it's easier to get into blank school if you apply as a STEM major as a female, right? I don't think that rhetoric is something that I personally consider, nor do I think other people should really like use that rhetoric to um, decide their life career. And so that's something that I guess maybe you guys don't have to consider. Um, Other than that, I feel like because of how my extracurriculars turned out, which was doing a lot of things in the health career field, doing a lot of advocacy and policy, um, it kind of shaped my decision pretty well for my major. Even though I applied as a psych major, um, my bigger goal for Yale is to do their public health program. They don't have an undergraduate public health degree, but they have a graduate degree, and they have like a 4+1 program where you can get like your master's in 5 years and whatever. So that was like something that I mentioned in my application saying, oh, I wanted to do that, right? And so, um, yeah, mentioning those things, like knowing exactly uh, what are like some examples of curriculars that you want to do in college, and like the classes that you'll take as like a psych major or like as a whatever major you are in your application is really helpful, because then it'll help them picture you in their school. But for me, choosing a major really depends on your passion. And um, if you are in a position that are like you can't choose based on your passion, then I would choose something that is like the closest to your passion, because if you're passionate about something, then you'll want to do it, and then you'll excel in that field, right? Whereas if you choose something for the practicality of it and you're not passionate for it, you're not as likely to do well in the field. And so you might not actually end up in a position where you are financially stable if you're not as like, I don't know, higher up or in a position where you are able to earn the income that you would. So it just depends. But for me, the biggest thing is to go with what you're passionate about. Yeah.
Okay, so then kind of to add on to that question, so on top of, you know, knowing how knowing what major that they would want to go into, what is your advice then on how do students know if they're a good fit for like a certain school? And then,
Ooh.
specifically for like Yale, like what kind of, what kind of students do you think Yale specifically is looking for,
Mm-hmm.
saying that, you got in?
Mm-hmm. I feel like even schools like Yale are very diverse in their application decisions. Not saying that they're not going to be looking for fit, but they are a college that emphasizes diversity, which is something that I personally liked. Um, but when it comes to fit, I think um, it's difficult. So there's two aspects, right? When you're looking at fit, you're looking at how you think you'll fit into their college and how they think you will fit into their college. So it's from two perspectives, right? So for me, for when you're looking at it from your own standpoint, how you think you'll fit into their college, the things that I considered was the social culture, the classes, like what things do the college emphasize, what do they value the most in students, and I thought that Yale was a good fit for me because I was really into um, the social sciences, which is a department that Yale puts a lot of money into. And I feel like that's something that students don't consider as much, is they don't look at how the school distributes their resources throughout the different departments and programs. And for me, I saw that Yale was a school that really dedicated a lot of their resources to developing this program that I was going to be into. And so I really looked at that and I was like, okay, that's like plus points. Another thing that I really liked about Yale was the social culture. That was something very big for me because in high school, I was kind of the I don't really know how to explain. I just like I studied a lot. I stayed at home a lot. I was kind of your like typical stay at home, do your homework kind of person, and that was something that I wanted to break out of. And Yale had a social culture that enabled that and that actually encouraged it instead of encouraging the very competitive, highly hustle bustle kind of culture that I didn't want to be in anymore. And so that was another aspect that I looked at. Another aspect that I looked at was extracurriculars and the networking that they offer as a school, right? And so I would look into the psych extracurriculars, the research opportunities. And I feel like every major institution, the Ivies, they would always have like really good um, programs and research opportunities for you. It's just the difference between them is how personal they might want to be and how personal you want the experience to be. Like I know, for instance, University of Pennsylvania, when I was applying to them, their research opportunities weren't as personal as Yale's, where Yale's professors, because it's a much smaller school, they have more opportunities that have a lower ratio from student to professor or from mentor to mentee ratios that would enable the experience to be more personalized, which was something that I also looked for because I knew that I was I was a student that really valued having a more personal learning experience, and I wanted to go to a smaller school, which was why Yale was also like the better choice for me when compared to other bigger schools that I was considering, like Harvard or even like Berkeley or UCLA. And so that was another aspect. And then other aspects are just, I feel like the people, you also have to just like look at what kind of people go to the schools because those people are the people that are going to be around you for the next 4 years. And if you're the type that's like, oh, I don't care about social life in college, I'm just going to study, study, study. I'm like, for me, I feel like if that was my mindset, I know that I'm going to be so miserable. And so I know that I wanted to go to a school where I really like the people that are going. And for me, Yale was that place because um some of the kids like I knew who were applying early also. I like I'm friends with them and I was like, oh yeah, you're chill, right? And then when I look at some of the other schools that like the other kids are applying to, like the type of people that would apply to those schools, you can kind of like gauge the culture of um, that school from that. And so I was considering that and I was like, oh yeah, Yale's definitely a place that I want to be in and like I want to be surrounded by those people. Because those people are the same that you're going to be working with. Those people are the same that you're eventually going to have like the connections and relationships with. So if you don't like the people that are going there, you're going to be so miserable. And so that was something that was big for me too. And then also now when we're talking about like how the college sees you, so like how if the college thinks you're a good fit, I feel like because colleges like Yale are so tolerant and not tolerant, inclusive in their admission decisions, I feel like it's important to see if you will fit that school, but I also feel like if your application doesn't reflect your true self and you go to that school as like the person you put on the application instead of the person you are now, you're going to be miserable there. So when you're looking at like how the school is going to see you as like a good fit, you want to put your true character because if the school really doesn't think you're a good fit there, you're probably not a good fit there. And so you don't want to be going to a school that is going to like be exclusive of you. And so I feel like when it comes to how the school views you, you should always set forth whatever you are as a person on your application. And if the school decides that that's not something that they want, then that's their loss, or that's because you just really won't fit in there. And it's not, you don't want to be in a position where you're not supposed to be here, but you're there, because then you'll be like so much worse, and it'll be a very bad experience for you. And so, yeah, I think those two things are the bigger things that I considered when I was looking at fit.
Okay, great. That was like so enlightening and so wise. So thank you, Zoe.
Thank you.
Well, I guess to kind of wrap it all up then, so I guess obviously you're gonna, being from Hawaii is like a huge change from living in New Haven. New Haven, yeah. So what are you most looking forward to when you go there
Oh my
in
gosh.
a little less than a month? That is so exciting.
What am I most looking forward to? The social life, like meeting new people. Okay, but I don't know because I honestly haven't been going out of my bubble. Um, like after admissions, they have all these orientations and emails and like group chats that you can join, and I haven't joined any of them. And you're supposed to like post your picture on Instagram so like other people know, but I haven't joined any of those either, and I haven't done anything to really open up my social life. But I still feel like because I'm someone that really values individualized experience and like quality time with people, I don't really like the like socializing on a very artificial level through like the Instagram or group chats. But I'm just looking forward to making more friends in person, and being able to have like a good college experience. Like I'm actually looking for the college experience, which is something that's kind of new because in high school I was like, I need to be like da 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 so that I can, um, get into college like Yale. But I mean, while that did, I mean, I guess it was like effective because I'm in, but then also I feel like I want to be able to live like in the moment. Um, and I'm gonna answer the next, or I don't know if it's your next question, but what am I least excited to do, because it's like on the tip of my tongue, I need to get it out, is I am so scared of the cold. You cannot
Yeah.
understand. I love Hawaii weather so much. Like even in California, I'm like I came to California last year to visit family, my dad, and the cold in California was already freezing for me, and I was like, I know that New Haven is 10 times worse. Yeah, I'm so scared of the cold. I'm always the person that's cold. I'm always gonna have like a hoodie on. It's literally, I don't know how, I'm just always cold. And so going to, that was like the one thing that turned me off from Yale, just the cold. And that was why I was like always considering like the UCs or like California schools, because I knew that it wasn't going to be as cold. But I feel like
It's a good change. It's a
yeah,
good, yeah.
and I feel like it'll also help me open my world a little bit bigger, because my world currently is really really small. And so I think like it's going to be good for me to like be outside of my comfort zone, as cheesy as that sounds. But also I think it's a fair sacrifice, I feel like, to go
Yeah.
to Yale with like the cold. So I feel like it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that is pretty much all the time that we have,
Mhm.
but thank you so much, Zoe, for coming and
Thank you.
just sharing all of your great advice that you have, and just best of luck.
Yeah.
With
Oh, um, if I guess like I can leave my contact information
Oh
if
yeah, go
anyone
ahead and
wants it for
plug
more
it.
information. Yeah. You guys, I I'll just say my email if you guys want
Yeah.
to tell me. Um, it's Zoey.Duan at Yale.edu. I feel like that one's pretty comprehensive. You guys can just get that.
Yeah.
ZOUYDUAN at Yale.edu. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, definitely. If you guys have any questions,
Yeah.
feel
Email
free to
me.
contact Zoe. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Zoe.
Thank
And
you.
yeah. Mahalo for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you were able to gain valuable insight from our wonderful speaker today. We hope you have a great rest of your day and tune in next time. This is Kylie, signing off. We'll see you in the next one.